Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you were able to join us today here on Foresight TV. I'm Kent Mulkey. I'm filling in for the ineffable Steve Moran, who's away for the week hey, what we like to say, he's on assignment. Well, the holidays are upon us, and for families who have a loved one living with memory loss, this season brings up a lot of emotion and a lot of questions. For example, people are asking, what do I get them? Will they use it? Does it matter? Will they remember? So today we're going to rethink holiday gift giving and memory care. And I couldn't ask for a better guide than Mike Merrigan. Mike is the reflections director for the residents at Silver Square in Dover, New Hampshire, with LCB Senior Living. We're going to talk about practical gifts, dignity, what families often get wrong, and what they get beautifully right. And my hope is that you'll leave here today with ideas you can actually use that bring comfort, connection, and maybe even a little joy. Mike, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kent. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mike, take us back then to a specific moment when you realized that creating a culture of love and compassion and not just, quote, providing care was going to define your leadership. Was there a resident, a family interaction, or even a team experience that showed you what was possible?
I think that all of the residents and the families that I have had the pleasure to work with over the years have touched me in some way. And I don't know that I could identify any specific one resident or family necessarily, but I think that's because everybody's journey is important, and every family and every resident that I've had the pleasure of working with has value. And although our residents come from lots of different backgrounds and lots of different family situations, and some are easier than others, that at the end of the day, I think that the honor of my profession is to be able to be a part of that story in these later phases, especially for those people that are living with memory loss, who really do need somebody in their corner as they struggle, as their families struggle. And so for me, it's less about any one individual or another, and more about the, I guess, collection of people that I've had the pleasure to work with over the years. I think I'm better at what I do for having met all of them.
How long have you been doing it with in the reflections?
So I have specialized in memory care for about the past 5 years. I've been working in senior living for almost over 15, I think, at this point now.
Wow.
And it's the last 5 years or so when I really decided that memory care is the best fit for me. I'm a board certified dementia educator through the National Institute of Dementia Education. And I really found that supporting residents and families that are struggling with memory care is the best use of, I think, my gifts. I enjoy connecting with people that are struggling and that need a kind word and a gentle hand, and somebody that's going to sort of meet them where they are and support them no matter where they are in that journey. And so there's something about that relationship that just feels special to me, and it's an honor. Yeah, people are unwell and families are struggling, and they need somebody who has been there before to tell them what to expect and help provide a little bit of guidance. And I feel like that's where I've been able to make the most impact, which is why, for me, memory care is really where I want to be.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. That's a pretty unique calling, and we sure appreciate it. Well, holidays show up every year, whether we want them or not, whether we're ready or not. And when families walk into your memory care neighborhood during the holiday season, what's the big theme you hear over and over? What are they struggling with most when it comes to making the holidays meaningful for someone with dementia?
I think a lot of time they struggle with the changes that the resident has encountered over the course of that year between the last holiday and this one. And what I often hear families struggle with is how to connect, how to relate, how to make the person feel comfortable and safe. And so what I hear often is, I want to visit with my loved one, but I don't know what that looks like. They don't remember everything that I remember. They don't remember the same people, the same places, the same faces. And although they have this shared family experience, sometimes when they get together during the holiday, that's not available to everybody in that moment. And so it's about, how do I navigate this visit in a way that is pleasant for everybody involved, so that the resident feels the joy of the holidays, and so that the family can enjoy their time together And often they're just looking for a little bit of guidance on how to make that quality time and to sort of bypass the challenges that often come with memory loss so that they can still enjoy their holidays in as many ways as they always have. And so that's what I usually hear from folks is they're looking for those tips and tricks for how to connect, how to communicate, how to prepare their loved ones that may not get the opportunity to visit. Often you have that family that maybe they've come in from the one coast or the other and they don't get to the community more than, let's say, each Christmas. And so a lot of time has passed, which can be a challenge both for the person with memory loss, but also for the family who may be sometimes a little startled by the changes that may have taken place in that year. And so often it's about encouraging and coaching those people to meet their loved one where they are in that moment.
So I provide some companion care for a gentleman with Alzheimer's disease, and I was talking with him just yesterday, Christmas, and he feels pretty, just really mixed about it and pretty uncertain about what it means anymore.
Sure.
He wasn't able to articulate it that way, but he's wondering about gift giving. He's wondering about where he's going to be for Christmas. How do you address that with the residents?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ken, because truthfully, the holidays are complicated for a lot of us. That's a very normal thing. Aside from somebody struggling with memory care, a lot of us have mixed emotions surrounding the holidays as we stop and think about those loved ones that maybe are no longer with us. And so it's actually a very normal experience for somebody to be feeling those ways around the holidays. And so I think for people with memory care issues, a lot of the time it's about providing reassurance, providing them opportunity to reminisce and sort of tell their stories, talk about their past, and process some of those feelings the same way that you would with anybody else, because the person with memory loss continues to experience their world emotionally. And so while it's maybe best not to focus on the facts, what day is the family arriving, when is their flight getting to the airport, and those sorts of things, it's more about reassuring them that the holidays are a time to, I think, maybe just reflect on the gifts of the past year, those family traditions. It's a good time to feast on the five senses for the person with memory loss. How can we incorporate that favorite holiday music? How can we incorporate the smells that we connect with the holidays, or those traditional family foods, or all of those sorts of things? So it's more about reassuring them by creating an emotional experience for them and really focusing on the positives of the holiday, while also not invalidating the fact that it can be kind of a fraught time for people. We don't want to just sort of blindly reassure them that everything's fine and they don't have anything to worry about. We want to make them feel that genuinely without invalidating the way that maybe they're feeling about the holiday, just like anyone else.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. Yeah. So obviously you work with residents across all stages of dementia. How does your gift advice shift when you're coaching someone with a loved one in an early stage versus a later stage of dementia? And what's the biggest mistake families make when they're trying to be thoughtful?
Sure. I think that my best advice is to consider, just as you would with anybody else that you're buying a gift for, is this the best thing for where they are? Just as when we buy gifts for younger people, we're always worried, will my teenager appreciate this? Those sorts of things. So I think those considerations from the heart remain the same either way. But with somebody with memory loss, certainly there are a few other things we want to be thinking about, safety being a primary among those. Is this something that presents a danger to my loved one? Because we don't think about that often when we're buying for adults, right? So I think taking the time to think about, how will my loved one react to this? Does it bubble up some sort of emotional response, right? Am I providing them with something that maybe has meaning to them or to our family? What might I expect in terms of a reaction from them? Is this something that might make them have a sad moment? Maybe I'm passing along a family heirloom, where a piece of jewelry that's meaningful or something like that. Or is this something that presents a danger to somebody that maybe I haven't thought about? Often things like live plants, for example, some plants are toxic, right? And we may send a floral arrangement. I see that often. Families from out of town send floral arrangements to a memory care neighborhood, but some of the plants that might be in that arrangement present a danger to the folks that live there. So asking your florist about being sure that all of the plants included in an arrangement are edible and safe might be a good idea.
Yeah.
And then in terms of those different levels, it's about figuring out and understanding where a person is at cognitively and trying to meet them there. So for example, if a person is still able to do a 500-piece puzzle, then fantastic. A 500-piece puzzle is a great gift. It provides opportunities for dexterity and problem solving. But maybe somebody who has been a lifelong puzzle maker that's further along in their dementia journey, maybe they need a puzzle with fewer pieces. And there are some really good products out there in the market that still have photographs and puzzles that are very adult. We don't want cartoons and things like that, because the person living with memory loss isn't a child. They're still a grown and dignified adult. And so maybe finding something that has, say, 100 pieces might be more supportive for somebody with memory loss. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to provide sensory stimulation. That's very powerful. So tactile objects, things that you can hold, things that you can feel, are often supportive for folks that are further on in their dementia journey. And really what we want to do is provide them with things that are failure-free. We don't want to give them things that they're going to struggle with. We don't want to give them things that are going to compromise their dignity. That's an important thing as well. For example, there's a lot of sensory boards out there where they have these things that people, especially that are a little further along in their dementia, might be able to manipulate, things that have different mechanisms that you can use and turn and all of those things to keep the hands busy. We often see things like that made for young children who are learning how to use their hands. But those aren't the products that we want to buy for adults, because our seniors are just that. They're adults that have lived complicated, beautiful lives, and we don't want to give them children's toys just because they're struggling with their memory. But there are versions of those products on the market that are available for adults that are made out of wood, and they have leather pieces and metal pieces, and that are still safe for the right person, but a little bit more of a dignified experience. So I think a lot about making sure that the gifts that we're giving for people are respecting who they are now and who they have always been. I think that's important.
Great, thank you. You know, the gentleman I provide companionship care with, I bought him a 48-piece puzzle.
Yeah.
And the pieces are about 3 inches. And the place where he lives, the assisted living where he lives, the people were very kind of suspect whether or not he'd be able to handle that. And he and I put that together in 15, 20 minutes. He was really sharp with it.
Yeah.
Really sharp.
And what a wonderful thing to be able to do with him as well, right? Spending time together. It's not just giving a gift and leaving, but you were able to present him with this gift and then spend time with him putting that puzzle together. And jigsaw puzzles are a great thing. They can improve cognition and visual spatial reasoning. We get a dopamine release every time we're successful when we solve a puzzle. So there's all those sort of micro successes every time you find another piece that fits. And again, we want to make things as failure-free as we can for the person with memory loss. So not only is giving something like a puzzle a great gift, but then as you did, spending the time with that person to put it together is a really nice shared experience.
That's great. Thank you. So let's get tactical here for a second and ask you this. So pretend I'm a daughter who's just said to you, and you probably hear this from daughters, sons, grandkids, Mike, I have no idea what to get my dad. Mm-hmm. He's in memory care, obviously, and I want it to matter. What are some top 3 to 5 gifts that you would say almost never miss?
Yeah, good question. So this is where I think it's really important that we're always having that person-centered approach with our residents, is knowing who they are as people and understanding really what makes them tick and where they are on that dementia journey. Because I don't know that there's any sort of one-size-fits-all answer to that kind of question. So the first thing I would want to do is really think about who that person is. And I think when it comes down to it, it may be more about the sort of categories that we might purchase from. So for example, anything that's nostalgic or gives us the opportunity to reminisce is a really great gift. So photo books are wonderful. Family photo albums, especially with photographs from the residents' past, family photos, wedding photos, pictures of their children when they were young, pictures of that person's mother and father if those are available. It's not always necessarily about making a purchase through Amazon, but sometimes taking the time to put something together that's thoughtful and meaningful can really be not only good for the resident, but also provide a wonderful experience for that family member to reflect on the life that they've led with that person and why that person is so meaningful to them. Sometimes it provides the opportunity for them to remember who that person was to them prior to their memory loss, and remember that the person isn't their diagnosis, but they're their story. And so sometimes putting together something like that can be a really wonderful gift. Also, anything related to music. So we process music in the amygdala. That's the part of our brain that deals with our emotions. When somebody has dementia, primarily when we talk about the brain, we have the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that's logic and fact and reason, the part of the brain that's impacted by dementia primarily. But our amygdala is the creative part of our brain. It's the emotional part of our brain and where we process music. And that part of our brain remains really healthy and active. And so gifts like, for example, maybe an MP3 player loaded with those favorite songs from the past, or they, even for somebody a little further along in their dementia journey, they have adaptive tools as well. They have these wonderful little radios. They look like a desk radio that you might have had. It's got knobs and all of those sorts of things. It looks very much like one of the kind of good old fashioned desk radios that our residents might remember. But all it really does is have a flap that when you lift it, it starts playing the music almost like a music box. But instead of a tinkly music box tune, it will play those songs that the family members were able to upload. And again, music from other residents' past, those things that are meaningful to them. They're really pretty great. Music that the individual enjoyed from those ages of 18 to 25 are kind of the years, and the music that we listened to during that time in our lives resonates the most for us when we have dementia, both emotionally and cognitively. So musical gifts can be really wonderful as well. And then I would say probably anything that gives a sense of comfort in a sensory way. So we may be talking, and these are good for maybe people a little bit further along in their journey. That might be things like a weighted shoulder wrap, or a weighted blanket that's going to provide a little bit of that sensory input. Or it may be something, for example, like aromatherapy, diffusers, those sorts of things. Again, always keeping safety in mind, right, is making sure that we're not introducing any chemicals or substances that could harm a person. But again, depending on sort of where they are in their journey, there are a lot of those different kind of things that can just give that person a sensory input that they may be missing otherwise. So those kind of things are always really helpful. Fabric swatches, for example, for somebody in maybe late stages of dementia as a sensorial agent, something that they can touch and feel and experience that way. Not only dexterity, but also just sort of that sensory of being able to feel different textures. Again, the kind of things that maybe you might not think to buy for you or I, but somebody with dementia, and especially somebody in later stages of dementia, those sort of simple gifts can be really meaningful to somebody.
So how cool is that a resident gets their own playlist?
Yes, I think it's wonderful. It really is great. And what a better way to say, I know who you are and I know what you like, right? Yeah. Than that music that's really meaningful.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really neat research that's gone on regarding the impact of music on people with dementia.
Right.
I would encourage your audience to even just spend a few minutes Googling those sorts of things. They're really quite wonderful. And watching somebody put on some headphones and listen to that familiar music, the way that they light right up, the way that they sing those songs when they have forgotten so much in their life. I have watched residents that are no longer able to bathe on their own or dress on their own or feed themselves necessarily on their own. But when that music comes on, those lyrics, those tunes are all right there at the tip of their tongue, and they will hum and they will sing. And you can just sort of see them blossom and sort of return to that person that they are. It's really a wonderful experience.
So you said, to go back a second, just to be clear, you said people are going to really tap into or connect with the music that played when they were between 18 and 25. Is that right?
Yeah, typically, right. Around those, that's kind of the age where we really form our lifelong taste in music. Luckily for most of us, the stuff that we liked when we were 12 years old isn't what sticks forever and ever. But the things that we kind of we discover in those late teen and early 20 years are the stuff that sticks with us. And it can be different person to person. I always encourage not to just think of the music that a generation enjoyed, but who is that person? Just because you might have been the generation that really appreciated Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin may not mean that you were a fan of that music. You might have liked something else. It may be somebody that just lived in a household where jazz was playing all the time. And so what were those jazz records that they grew up on? Maybe it's Duke Ellington, those sorts of things. So it's always about person-centered care and really knowing who that individual is and making sure that we're finding things that are not only going to be supportive and provide joy for the person with memory loss, but also for who that person is.
That's great. Thank you so much. That's good education for me, for sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to start putting my playlist together.
I love that. That's great. That is great.
And email it to my kids.
That's the thing to do, for sure.
So inside your Reflections neighborhood, you do holiday programming, of course. Mm-hmm. What's one tradition or activity that surprised you or that you use that's so deeply resonated with residents and families?
One of the things that I always look forward to every year is building gingerbread houses. That's something that so many people have done, and is getting everybody together and being creative and, again, sort of having fun. Something like building a gingerbread house can be, it's an enjoyable sort of low stakes activity, right? It's not about how beautiful is my gingerbread house. It's more the activity of doing it together. And especially now where it's so easy to find gingerbread kits at the store that are sort of pre-made with the different components and all the things that you need, it can be something that you can do fairly inexpensively and fairly easily. And so going out and getting a handful of these kits and sitting down with a group of your friends and everybody working on putting together their gingerbread house with the music going on in the background. And we always want to try to be thinking about creating an experience, right? It's about not just the thing that we're doing, but the broader life experience. So I want to make sure for something like that we have on those classic Christmas songs that our residents love, that we offer some refreshments after that engagement, so that we're not only going to build this gingerbread house, but maybe after that we're going to eat some gingerbread and drink some cocoa and those sorts of things. We always want to make sure that we're looking at the whole picture when we're doing an engagement. But for me, I think that putting together gingerbread houses is something that you can do fairly quickly as well. Even somebody with dementia is able to focus on that for long enough to be successful in getting most of the project done. And then it's a pretty easy thing to set aside and return to later if it gets to be a little bit overwhelming for folks. But,
yeah, I tried implementing that tradition with my kids when they were young.
Yeah.
And it was going along pretty well, Mike, until the dog came along and decided to eat the gingerbread house. So I suggest you keep the house dog away from the gingerbread.
Yeah, I'm usually the one that's accused of eating the gingerbread. It's not
the
house dog you have to worry about. It's usually
there's always one of you out there.
Yeah.
When you look back over your years and leading Reflections, is there one holiday moment, one gift, one exchange that reminds you why this work really matters? One really highlight that you can think of?
There is. I think we often will do a holiday concert at the end of the year, and we invite the families to come and take part in that. And it's something that I always look forward to because it shows a lot of things. It shows, first off, that the residents have worked really hard to learn the program. We start very early. We start sometimes in October rehearsing for the Christmas concert that we're going to do at the end of the year, where the residents select their favorite Christmas songs. And again, that music that is so important to us is still there for those residents. So Christmas music is something that is pretty accessible for people that have memory loss to still be able to recall that music that we return to each year of our lives. And so when the families come and they see their loved ones dressed in their beautiful holiday outfits, and they're up there and they're performing and they're so vibrant and they're happy and they're successful, right? Maybe somebody starts the program by reading a poem. Maybe somebody that's a little bit earlier in their dementia journey. Maybe somebody that's a little further along in their dementia journey is sitting there, but maybe they have a tambourine that they're shaking or those sorts of things. And to see the families come in and experience their loved ones being happy and being successful and spreading joy the way that they always have in their holidays is a really lovely thing for me, because even for that hour, it's not about the memory anymore, and it's not about the loss, and it's not about the decline. It's about people sharing real moments of beauty and joy together. And it's a good reminder for me as a professional that there are beautiful moments around us all the time. And I think those holiday traditions, and especially our holiday concerts, are the thing that remind me that our residents are still capable of so much, and they have so much to offer both to me and to our communities and to their families as well. We don't stop being important to one another just because our memory is fading. And I think those are really wonderful opportunities to remind ourselves of that.
Okay. So just kind of an aside question I just thought of, Mike, that you might address for a minute or two.
Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes left. This has been really fantastic conversation, been very educational for me. I've been around memory care for 25 years, and I learned some stuff in the last 25 minutes that I never knew. Well, thank you. But what's your thought about families coming and taking a resident home for a holiday gathering?
Right. We get that question a lot. Yeah, I think it really depends on the individual. What's important is that we make sure, if we're going to do that, I think it's best to do in partnership with the community. If your loved one is living in a memory care community, that you've talked with your care partners and the aides who know them well and the nurses to really have a good plan to support that. Because I do think for the right person, it's really wonderful, but you have to do a lot of planning for something like that. It's important, I think, to maintain routines as much as possible. So to be thoughtful about what time of day, how long is that visit? I think it's important that we spend time making sure we've considered the environment that person's going to be coming into. You know, if they're coming into your home, have you removed fall hazards and trip hazards from your home? Is there a family dog that might be underfoot that you or I might be able to step over casually, but maybe somebody with memory loss or limited mobility could trip over? Have we considered having a person that we're going to sort of assign to be the partner for that loved one, right? Is say, okay, my job at the family holiday party is I'm going to keep an eye on grandma so that if she looks tired or she looks uncomfortable or she looks overwhelmed, I'm going to be the person to kind of raise a hand and say, hey, I think maybe we need to think about getting back home. And so I think for the right person, it can be really wonderful. I also think it's important to prepare the rest of the family for that visit. Because although people mean well, sometimes we have some sort of do's and don'ts for those visits. You know, we do want the family to reminisce. We do want the family to reassure. What we don't want is those family visitors that might also be at that party to test their memory, right? Oh, hey, grandma, do you remember me? Those sorts of things. We want to be careful about not correcting the person if they're making mistakes or arguing with them. You know, the person with memory loss might reference a family member that's no longer with us. And we don't want that well-meaning family member to remind them, well, actually, so-and-so passed away 2 years ago. And then we may be experiencing a catastrophic reaction to finding out that news, you know, for the first time. And so I think it's also about educating the participants and the guests at those family gatherings at home about how to support that loved one and make sure that it's an enjoyable experience for everybody.
Great. That's excellent. Thank you for that. Just you've been incredible, like I said, just incredibly helpful. How can people reach you? Where can we learn more about the residents of Silver Square and your program and reach out to connect with you? I got a hunch you're going to be hearing from some people.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm very proud to work for LCB Senior Living. Here, I work actually throughout New England. We have 40 communities from Vermont all the way down to Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And so LCB Senior Living is a great place to find out more about our programs and our offerings. I always encourage somebody that if one of our communities is nearby you, please call in and come in for a visit and see what we have to offer. Even if memory care isn't where you are right now, it may be down the road, and it's always smart to find out what's out there and find out what the resources are that are available. And certainly I can be reached at mmerrigan@lcbseniorliving.com. I always love hearing from folks, and I'm happy to connect with people that may have questions or want to have a conversation similar to this. So I love being a resource for people in this field for sure.
Yeah, like I said, I got a hunch you're going to hear from some people, my friend.
I hope so.
Extremely helpful today. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you all for being here today and listening. Steve will be back next week. Like I said, the ineffable Steve Moran will be back next week. And Mike, thanks again for your time today.
Thank you, Ken. Have a happy
Have a
holiday.
great weekend. Happy holidays to everybody.